All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters. Excited to be with you on this May 7th. I have an interesting topic. Of course, it's an update on what I did, on what I talked about on Monday. But this is like with more developments. There's a lot of moving parts regarding Middle East or West Asia has always been, but specifically now dealing with the Houthis and so forth. Or Ansarullah, that is. So I'm going to be providing you my own insights, my own analysis about this. I'll share some excerpts with you from my book that pertain to this, and I'm also going to be sharing with you some clips from a variety of sources. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy what I'm going to be sharing with you. But before I'll move an inch, I'd like to say hi to our wonderful community. As always, US on a live support, the possibility for that. Famida Amal, good to see you. History Discovery, good to see you. Linyan, good to see you. Matt Becky, as always, good to see you. Taiwan Still, Matt Becky down there. Timeline Dunkley, good to see you. As always, Truth Seeker, here you are. Who else is here? Afghan Corleone, good to see you. Salam to you as well, my friend. Who else is here? Idris Williams, good to see you. And Jamie Dodger, good to see you here, man. So, all right, Massian Dorcier, as always. And of course, I'm sorry, all the way through. Good to see you. Man Belko, greetings from Maryland. Good to see you. So, all right, guys, let's because I got a lot to cover in this one here. So as I said, I'm going to be talking about, to a degree, the coordination between the United States and Israel. Yeah, they coordinated the recent attacks. Yeah, don't think that now we're saying, oh, the president's gonna go to the region and all of it's gonna be nice. No, U.S. and Israel coordinated their attacks, the airstrikes, even though it's Israel that took the lead on attacking the Hodeidah and later on attacked the Sanaa Airport. So, but the U.S. was taking part of that as well. So, and all this, Israel claimed that it was in response to the missile attack on Ben Gurion Airport, which took place on Sunday. So, now the key question we have to ask ourselves is, will these strikes deter the Houthis? It's straightforward. I'll say no. They will. They, meaning the U.S., Israel, or whomever, have no understanding of the historical facts as to what Yemen went throughout its history, as far as fighting foreign invaders, foreign forces, foreign occupiers, foreign whatever you want to call it. Let alone now Ansarullah or Houthis, that is, they are fierce fighters, and there is no way that the U.S. is going to be defeating them, or even Israel. Israel has bombed Hodeidah more than 5 times way back to no end. So in any event, this is what I'm going to be detailing with you. And all this comes on the heels of the upcoming trip of Mr. Trump to the region. Well, the region, we're talking about 3 subservient countries he's going to: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. So here's the question for you guys. What those 3 countries have in common? Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. So just think about the answer and put it on the chat box, and I'll check it out later on. So I have one housekeeping item I need to share with you, and thanks to Desolator 108 for posting the comment. I made a mistake last time, a slip of a tongue. I'm just a human. When I said the speed of sound, when I said the speed of light regarding the Palestine 2 missile hypersonic, I meant to say the speed of, I said the speed of light. I meant to say speed of sound. So my mistake, and I made that mistake, and I repeated it twice. So I guess my brain was racing for that. So I just want to clear the record. So I meant to say speed of sound, not speed of light. So, all right, let's do some headlines here, because there are some major development that's going on. As a matter of fact, one of them, when I get to it, I'm going to tell you what I intend to do. So let's start with the first one. And the first one has to do with, I worked on all this yesterday. I spent the whole afternoon reading the analysis and all that, and preparing some pictures for you guys. So this is a parade in a red square, an old picture, but there's the upcoming day of victory, May 9th, which is after tomorrow. But in any event, 29 leaders from around the world also confirmed their attendance to the Moscow celebration. And even with this, there are this concern about Ukraine, my attack, whatever. I think it will be a big mistake if Ukraine does this, because now it's going to give a justification for the Russians to level whatever left. And they might end up doing this. So this is what's going to be happening on May 9th, the Victory Day. And this is what the Russians usually do. And this, of course, fall back to May 8th, 1945. So there are, I looked at the list of at least, not a complete list, to be clear. I saw some names there, like, for example, President Xi Jinping is going to be attending, the Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, among others. There is also, what was interesting, you know what was interesting, is that some troops will be participated. That includes China, Egypt, and Myanmar will be also taking part of the parade into that one. So I found an article that is very, very interesting, and I'm going to share it with you guys regarding the 1943. In 1943, and here is what happened. And this article was written by Dr. Jack Powells. So I'm going to share it with you here. What was interesting is that in 1943, let me remove this one here. In 1943, guys, the Americans, the British, and the Soviet, back then, all three have agreed to move forward, that there will be no separations or separate negotiations with Nazi Germany. That was back then, 1943, right? And this was in response to, with respect to its capitulation, meaning the Germans, that is so, and that the German surrender will have to be unconditional. That's exactly what took place back there. And in the early years of 1945, according to the article, the German was as good as defeated. So, and the Allies were getting ready to collectively receive the unconditional submission. But here is the kicker. Here is what might shock you guys. And by the way, the question was at that time, where would that capitulation ceremony take place? Was it on the eastern side or eastern front, or on the western front? So, and that's what I found very interesting. So I'm going to quote one short paragraph, if you allow me. And for only reasons of prestige, Western allies preferred that Nazi Germany would acknowledge defeat somewhere on Western front. But here is the kicker. Now, that was just a short quote I want to share with you. You know what took place back then, to those who are familiar with the history of 1945, 1947? There were secret talks that took place with the Germans. And who did that with? Who did negotiate with the Germans? Not all three. It was British and the Americans, because they were having secret conversation or talks with the Germans, especially on March 1945, in none other than so-called neutral Switzerland. Well, Switzerland is not a neutral anyway, but that's what we call it. And why is this important? Because there was sort of a violation of the inner allied agreement between the three: Soviet, British, and Americans. And this one thing, again, it highlights to you, you can't trust the Americans, you can't trust the British. So, because that agreement, inner allied agreement, under the code name of Operation Sunrise, that was the code name for that operation, promised to be some sort of be useful in the context. However, the British and the Americans violated that. So Anyway, I just wanted to share this with you quickly to highlight to you some. Second thing I want to headlight it headlines, not headlights. Headline. Headlines. This one here, right here from Taiwan. I don't know if I'm sure you are aware of what's going on. Taiwan's opposition party plans to recall the so-called, I call him governor. Now they call him over there president. For me, he's not president because I was there and I saw that Taiwan is part of China. You know, that's like to me like another state. Do I call the governor of, let's say, Florida the president? No, I call him the governor. So, or even Hawaii or whatever. So, anyway, Lei, his name is Lei, the governor or the president. I got a picture here. So that's the guy. Which, by the way, did you know who helped this guy move into the ladder of power? That was the U.S. And it was a particular agency that helped him out. Do you know which one? Can anybody type in the chat box which one? Yeah, I'm sure you know. I'm not insulting your intelligence, guys. I'm just having you part of the conversation, you know, because we beyond that kind of thinking of, as somebody once said, you treat your community like a school. That's nonsense. So, Sam, you are right. You're right, Sam. Also, I have Taiwan still. You guys got it. You got it. You guys got it. So here's the thing. Now, the Taiwan's largest opposition party, the Kuomintang, so says it will start procedure to recall Taiwanese governor Lei Cheh-te, or governor or president, whatever that is. Let me remove the picture here. So, and that is what they're gonna be doing. And this comes May 20th, about a week and a half from today. So since he took office, that's what it's going to be. And who's leading the charge of this? It's an individual by the name of, and I think I got his picture, Eric Chu. He's the party leader for the opposition. Right here, I got a picture of him right there. Is the one that leading the charge on this. So the recall campaigns are heating up against the backdrop of a sharp partisan division in its legislature, meaning in Taiwan, targeting a total of 50 lawmakers from the ruling and opposition parties. It looks like the Lei is trying to use some dictatorship procedures here to manage the politics inside Taiwan. So and they won't have it, because recently the Kuomintang held a massive rally in Taipei to oppose this investigation. And that's where the party leader Eric Liu, that's the one you saw his picture right there, or Eric Chu, I'm sorry, Eric Chu. That's the one that accused the president or the governor Lei of using the judiciary to attack the Kuomintang party in a dictatorial manner. That's his word. So very, very, very interesting. So third development or headlines that's going on has to do with President Xi Jinping. Believe it or not, this might surprise you a little bit. Here is what's interesting about this. President Xi calls on Europe or the EU to unite against the US unilateralism. Is he right in that call? What do you guys think? Yes or no? So President Xi Jinping issued an explicit, that's a measured word, explicit call to the European Union leaders to strengthen cooperation with his country in face of what he describes as unilateralism. He's right on that, you know, an indirect reference to the policies pursued by the administration of none other than Mr. Trump, which threatens to reshape the global order on a unilateral basis. Yeah, well, I'll say good luck to the US for that. I ain't gonna succeed in doing that. Let me see your answer here quickly. Yeah, Hong Guan, you say yes. Taiwan still, you say yes. Who's the Al Stalukin? Be careful, Xi. Marco, you say nah. Okay. Yeah, it's good to read your feedback, guys. It's very, very, very important. And the last thing I'm going to share with you has to do with Pakistan. Yes, I'm not forgetting about it. I am going to do a live stream for you in light of what India just did last night or the night before. So India, I think India needs to be taught a lesson, in my opinion. Yeah, I think the India is misunderstanding that because it has the largest mass population, that's going to give it an advantage. No, no. I think it's going to backfire on this. But anyway, here is what happened in Pakistan. 7 Pakistani soldiers were killed. Yeah. And of course, you all know what happened with India cutting off the water to Pakistan. So what Indian prime, dozens killed and wounded in mutual shelling, and Pakistan in retaliation announced that the downing of 5 Indian fighter jets. So this is what the Pakistani military spokesperson announced today, as a matter of fact, that at least 26 civilians were killed and 46 others wounded in an Indian army strike on 6 sites in Pakistan. And I even read one report that was a 3-year-old girl. She was killed. So, and this is once again, I think what Modi is doing, this ethnicity of Hinduism and all that, he's gonna be dragging India into a major war. I hope it never gets to that, because when he announced the cutoff of water, which, by the way, you all know that this one was under a treaty. So it was under a treaty that was signed. And makes you just wonder, what is Modi thinking? So, and of course, Modi said in his speech, India suspended its participation now of the 1960 water sharing treaty with Pakistan. Well, who he thinks he is, he can just do whatever. And that's why I'm just thinking out loud here, guys. You know, maybe India needs to be taught a lesson. I don't know. But anyway, I am reading some analysis about this, and I'm going to do a live stream for you about it. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. So, all right, let's get into our topic. What are we going to be talking about today? Which is a very, very interesting. And the questions that I keep going back to is that, can the US and Israel defeat the Houthis? I don't think so. I don't think so. If you know, look how long we've been now conducting air raids and so forth. And by the way, the Houthis just launched another missile about 2 days ago. We're not talking about the one on Sunday. So, like I said at the beginning, the question that looms large is, will the bombing of now the Israelis in conjunction with the Americans sort of change the deterrence equation with the Houthis? So, and I read and I listened to some people who have an in-depth regarding this. For example, I remember reading statements by a military expert, Brigadier General, retired Elias Hanna, who ruled out the possibility that Israel missiles attack on target in Yemen will deter Ansarullah. In other words, the Israelis did this before. 5 or 6 times they targeted the Hodeidah Airport. No, because it's not going to work for one reason. And that reason, according to the retired general, and I couldn't agree more with his assessment also, is because there is no strategy into this. What Israel is doing is just bombing buildings. It's all for a show. The same thing we are doing. American people have no idea about the cost involved, how far we have spent so far, and what have we achieved? Nothing. And he's right about this idea, meaning General, retired General rather, Elias, that there's no strategy for Israel. So, and this is now, as I said, like the 5th or 6th time Israel has bombed targeted previously that they did a year before in Yemen, to no avail. So, And in my opinion, Houthis or Ansarullah will not be deterred. This is once again the problem we do not understand. We have no understanding of the historical facts regarding this part of the world. So, and if Israel conducting all this, and if the US conducting all this in response to one missile that the Houthis fired inside Israel, and this was enough to have strategic and geopolitical repercussions. Houthis didn't need to fire 100 missiles. I mean, can you imagine if they would have done that? So, and the problem within Israel is that the lack of this reality, the geopolitical reality that is, when it comes down to dealing with the Houthis, or even addressing the Houthis' dilemma for that matter, is that the presence of the US forces also within few kilometers from the Houthis' theater. In other words, they are in the vicinity. And that's why it gives you an idea there is no strategy on both the Israelis and the Americans. So Israelis did say we're going to retaliate. They did retaliate in response to the attack or the launching of a missile by the Houthis on Ben Gurion. And the Israeli retaliation was in coordination with the United States. So once again, makes you just wonder. The Israelis told the Americans, hey, you need to come with us. The Americans said, sure. Yes, sir. I'm not laughing out of laughing because it's problematic. And this could lead us to a much bigger problem, which what Israelis wants us to do on their behalf by fighting Iran. As a matter of fact, one of the viewers sent a comment, if I remember, a really perfect question, asked, could it be that the Israelis allow the missile to go through so they'll have a justification for pulling the US into a war against Iran? I don't think so. In my response, I don't think so. It's because the missile, the hypersonic, was able to penetrate all the defense missile defense systems. And it shows that the missile defense systems were incapable of stopping the hypersonic. And we're not talking yet the types of the Russian hypersonic or the Chinese hypersonic, which, by the way, just for the record, we Americans, so far, we have nothing to counter that. And I remember a statement by the commander of the Strategic Command in the Pentagon saying so. And this is why you're going to now see that the cooperation between the Israelis and the Americans is a foregone conclusion. But do you know why? Not only because the Israelis pressure American politicians, which it does. No. It's because Israel is part of the US Central Command. If you know about Central Command, Israel is part of it. Which means what, basically? That means Israel have access to information, aid, and even ammunition. So there is another element that you need to understand, is that Israel is linked by radar to the US, all US military units. So, and this is why, and I'm going to take you back to one of the video that I did few weeks ago when I talked about when Israelis tried to conduct an op inside Iran, but they couldn't go further. They stayed on the outskirts per se. Why? It's because all their communications were jammed. So I need you to understand this reality here, guys, why that is. So far, you're looking at over 800 raids that were conducted against the Houthis for the past 2 months. What have we achieved? Nothing. And again, it's because despite the US involvement, we weren't able to defeat the Houthis. And this leads me to something moving forward, which just makes you just wonder why Mr. Trump now is wanting a halt to bombing in Yemen. Do you think this is coincidence? I don't think so. So, because Mr. Trump is saying, here is, and I quote here, and I'm going to play a clip for you. As a matter of fact, it's what he's saying. The Houthis haven't now, actually, I'll let you listen to it yourself. So, this way, you guys, this is during his meeting with the new Prime Minister of Canada, Carney. So, take a listen here, guys.
We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight.
Are you going to trust what Trump is saying?
And we will honor that, and we will stop the bombings. And they have capitulated, but more importantly,
I don't think so. I don't think so, Donald. They didn't capitulate. You're just exaggerating the word. This is where you play on people's emotions.
We will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore. And that's what the purpose of what we were doing. So that's just news.
They didn't say that.
We just found out about that. So I think that's very, very positive. They were knocking out a lot of ships going, as you know, sailing beautifully down the various seas. It wasn't just a canal. It was.
Which canal are we talking about? There's no canal involved. We're talking about Red Sea. We're talking about a major economic artery of the global economy.
A lot of other places. And I will accept their word, and we are going to stop the bombing of the Houthis, effective immediately. And Marco, you'll let everybody know that.
All right, I'm going to stop right there because we don't need to listen to what Marco has to say anyway, because we all know. You all know what it means. So the fact that he's saying that the Houthis have announced to us that they don't want to fight anymore, it makes you just wonder. As a matter of fact, I had a chance to read in Arabic language, and I'm going to share the picture with you of this individual. His name is Muhammad Ali al-Houthi. Now Muhammad Ali al-Houthi is a supreme member of the political council. And here is what he wrote. And I'm going to read it in Arabic and translate it for you. It said, كتب محمد علي الحوثي عضو المجلس السياسي الأعلى للحوثيين في منشور على موقع الأمريكي على اليمن أن إعلان ترامب على وقف العدوان الأمريكي على اليمن سيقيم ميدانيا أولا. Basically what it's saying, Muhammad Ali al-Houthi, a member of the Houthi Supreme Political Council, wrote in a post on X that Trump's announcement of a halt to America's aggression against Yemen will be evaluated on the ground first. That doesn't say anything about the Houthis stopping completely. And here is what he continued. I read it word for word. I know things can get lost in translation, but again, when I read it in Arabic, it made more sense to me. When he added that Yemen's operation, meaning that's what Muhammad Ali al-Houthi is saying, Yemen's operations were and still are in support for Gaza to stop the aggression and bring in aid. He added, suggesting that the group will not, here's the keyword, will not hold its attacks on Israel. This is what he said. So for what Mr. Trump is saying versus what the facts on the ground, they are on the opposite side of the spectrum. Just doesn't make any sense. So, because here is the thing, it wasn't the Houthis that begged, as Mr. Trump saying, indirectly begged the Americans to stop. No. It was the United States that initiated that. Of course, like I always say, optics. Remember, Trump is going next week, and I'm going to talk about this one soon. He's going next week to the region, to the 3 subservient countries. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. So now the thing is that for the Houthis, they're not going to lie. If they say they're going to attack, they will attack. If they say they're going to halt the attack, they will hold the attack. At least they don't lie. They don't go on double standards. So far, at least from what I've been observing for the last decade or so about the Houthis. So, but here is the thing. When Donald Trump's saying, oh, they're not going to be shooting at American vessels, whatever, well, there are no American vessels in the Red Sea to begin with. Look what we just did when we moved the USS Harry Truman way up north. So what is he talking about? And of course, this is almost reminds me of history. Once again, we learn from history. You all remember, of course, to those who read the history in Vietnam, how the United States declared the victory in Vietnam. You remember, right? At the same time, the North Vietnamese took over control in Saigon. It's no different than what we had in Iraq. Let me play a clip for you here, guys, because I need you to hear this yourself. Take a listen, please.
Thank you all very much. Admiral Kelly, Captain Card, officers and sailors of the USS Abraham Lincoln, my fellow Americans. Major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
Yeah, I'll stop right there because no need to listen to the rest. You all know what it means. So it's the same argument about Afghanistan also. You know, and to me, this is where when you hear statements emanating from Washington, you always have to take a step back because you know they are not 100% accurate. So when Trump's saying the Houthis come to us asking for, it's a lie. You know, and I'm starting to wonder about Mr. Trump. Is he inherently a liar? You know, sometimes maybe his genes are messed up. I don't know. You know, humans, we are known for fallacy. We lie sometimes or whatever. But when you become, you know, consistently lying, that brings the question to the fore: is he inherently a liar? So, and all this comes now on the heels of another F-18 that fall into the sea. Let me share a picture with you here, guys. Right here, another F-18. It was reported that an F-18 Hornet that fell into the sea. So, you guys, I'm not saying it was shut down. So far what I read is that there was some mechanical error, but for second F-18s within a week to 2 weeks, that's just bad. That is bad. So once again, I'll let you reach your own conclusion for this. So now let me go back to the attacks of the Israel on Hodeidah and Sanaa Airport. Do you know how many fighter jets they conduct between the US and Israel? 30. And they used about 48 bombs. So now just think about the cost. And if you know any idea how much it costs for each hour the aircraft is the fighter jets is flying, it's about $40,000 to $45,000 an hour. So just think about the cost and so forth to all this, what it means. And all this, that's why the reason why the Israelis end up attacking the airport, Sanaa Airport. It's because the consequences of the Houthis' attack on Ben Gurion was significant. You know why? Because the international airlines now are suspending their flights to Israel after the Houthis' attack. Like I always say, The optics matter. So, and this is from a military aspects, because you're going to have to think also about the geopolitical front of all this. So I got a clip for you. I'm going to share it with you here. Now take a listen, and I will translate for you guys. Let me get to it here first. Sorry, I didn't have it open earlier, so. Okay, here it is. Let's take a listen here quickly, and I'll provide some. I'm not gonna play the entire because it's a little bit long. I just want you to hear the beginning, the first few minutes of that, and we go from there.
إسرائيل الآن في غزة.
By the way, guys, this is a conversation. This guy on second from right is Dr. Liqa Mekki. He is, I'm aware of him, he's a researcher at the Institute Al Jazeera Center for Studies. He's by training a journalist, but also a political commentator and analyst, that is, and he's been doing this for over 2 or almost 3 decades. So somebody who knows what he's talking about.
تضرب في لبنان، تضرب في سوريا، الآن في اليمن. يعني ما كان يخشاه البعض والحديث عن مخاطر حرب إقليمية، نحن عمليا في بوادر.
Basically, the question was, now we have, the commentator is saying, now we have attacks in Beirut, attacks in Lebanon, I'm sorry, attacks in Yemen, attacks in Syria. So what many have feared, that we're going to have a regional war, we are already in it.
في حرب إقليمية في صميمها الآن تقريبا.
نحن في خضم الحرب.
بالضبط.
And Dr. Liqa is saying, no, we are already in a regional war.
والمشكلة الكبيرة أن إسرائيل هي الطرف الأول فيها.
And the big problem is that Israel is the major problem into this. Like, it's the most responsible one into all this.
أو الطرف الرئيسي في كلها ابتداداتها، ولا أحد يوجه لها أو يقول لها أو يكبح جماحها.
No one is condemning it. No one is able to talk to Israel to stop.
إسرائيل ليس لديها روادع، وهذه مشكلة ربما لم تتكرر كثيرا في.
Because Israel does not have this kind of concerns or fears, and that's been a problem for a long time. And by the way, just to highlight to you guys, he brought up an interesting point, which makes you think about why we never wanted to allow any regional power or a country to expand militarily. But we couldn't control Iran regarding this for this reason, because we wanted to have Israel the only major power in the region, because Israel is our ears and eyes in the region. That is so. So Dr. Liqa was right regarding this aspect here. So let's continue here quickly.
التاريخ الحديث الإنساني حتى بالنسبة لإسرائيل ليس لديها روادع، لا روادع أخلاقية ولا قانونية ولا.
Israel doesn't have like boundaries, even legal boundaries, and I'm sure he's a reference to what they are doing in Gaza. Doesn't have boundaries regarding conducts rather in a war or whatever, because you saw the massive destruction that it took place or is taking place in Gaza.
لا عسكرية، يعني ليس لها من يواجهها بقوة.
And there is nobody to face it militarily. Of course, Iran now can.
وبالتالي ليس هناك إثمان تدفعها تجعلها ترتدع.
And this is why it doesn't have any reason for why it needs to back down, because there is no force. I mean, do you see the Saudis standing up, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, nobody, except the Iranians for that matter.
فلماذا لا تستمر؟
So for this reason, he's asking, so why not Israel will not continue in doing what it's already is doing?
هم أصلا إسرائيل أصلا بالتكوينها والحركة الصهيونية هي حركة عدوانية.
Originally, that the movement, he's referring to the movement of the ideology of Israel, is sort of what's the word? عدوانية. I couldn't think of the word right now. Not offensive, but sort of edges on fighting most of the time.
تأخذ ما تستطيع أن تأخذه. فماذا بعد 7 أكتوبر وتغير العقلية الإسرائيلية التي تريد المنع لا الردع؟
So they can take whatever. But however, after October, sort of the thinking start to change in Israel because they were faced with something they didn't expect.
منع الجميع من أن يكون لديهم القدرة.
Because their objective was always to prevent anybody who might have the capability, not the ability, the capability.
على الضرب. ليس فقط
The capability of attacking. That's what he meant to say.
الإرادة، القدرة.
It's not just the will, but rather the capability to conduct an attack, whatever that might be.
فالآن الوقت المشكلة أنه إقليميا كل الأهداف الحالية والمستقبلية لإسرائيل لا تستطيع أن.
The problem now is that regionally, all the targets within the region that Israel have come to realize is that no other location will be able to retaliate against Israel. That's the thinking that still persists inside Israel.
تجد قاسم مشترك بينها لمواجهة هذه الحالة.
But also Israel understand that there is no commonality among those countries. He's referring to the Arab countries. For example, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, Saudis, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, all of them, they couldn't unite. And Israel understand that.
يعني احنا نتكلم عن دول كبيرة في المنطقة. تركيا، إيران.
We're talking about big countries in the region like Turkey,
إيران،
Iran,
السعودية، الدول
Saudi Arabia, the Gulf States,
الخليج، الأردن،
Jordan,
مصر بطبيعة الحال.
Egypt, of course.
ما الذي فعلته لإيجاد تحالف على الأقل مؤقت، تحالف يقف بوجه إسرائيل.
So what have they done? If they could have a united front to stand up to Israel. And by the way, guys, I do remember saying this back then. Most of the Arab countries not even condemned what was going on. And that tells you the story right there. So I find Dr. Liqa is spot on this point here.
وينبه المجتمع الدولي أن الشرق الأوسط غير موافق على هذا الذي يجري.
And with this, on the international stage, that the Middle East is not, or West Asia, that is not accepting this status quo as it is.
أنه نعم بيننا خلافات، لكن الآن إحنا جميعا ضحايا.
Of course, there are disagreements among countries, but now you look at the whole region as being some sort of the victims for all this.
مناسبة الكل يتضرر، يعني إيران تضررت في محورها.
Because what you have now, you have, for example, Iran, and its access has been impacted. It's a reference to Syria and Lebanon.
تركيا تتضرر الآن.
Even Turkey, it's being impacted, even though Turkey is not coming forward and saying that.
السوريين تضرروا.
Syria has suffered.
انتصروا في الثورة ثم تضرروا.
Syria has achieved victory in the revolution, but now they are suffering because Israel is bombarding them.
إسرائيل. الخليج متضرر دوما
The Gulf states are always been impacted. Well, they are useless anyway.
خطيرة العملية. العراق طبعا في عز العاصفة.
And Iraq is at the eye of the storm, because Iraq now, what the prime minister is doing, and this is he's not saying this, I'm saying this one. Iraq now is playing, that Sudani, the prime minister, turns out to be a very, very weak leader.
يعني إذا سوريا تعرضت لأذى العراق.
Because here's the thing, according to Dr. Liqa was saying, if Syria now is experiencing attacks from Israel, that means next is going to be Iraq.
هو بالتالي احنا امام الجميع متضرر الان او لاحقا.
So now, I have the siren going on here. I don't know what's going on. Now that everybody's suffering, now and in the future.
إسرائيل ليس لديها روادع إن لم تكبح.
And this is why Israel has no fears now if it's not being deterred.
فستستمر.
And if that doesn't happen, they're gonna continue in what they are doing right now.
والمعارك بالحقيقة لم تحسم لا في لبنان حتى الآن.
Because here's the thing. He's referring to the Israeli firings now so far in Lebanon. It has not been conclusive.
ضفة مفتوحة.
You have also the in Gaza is still open.
وسوريا مفتوحة.
In Syria, still nothing conclusive. In other words, the Israeli conflicts in these regions have not. It's open. It's open conflict still going on.
وبدينا ربما يمتدون حتى إلى بلدان أخرى، إيران بالتأكيد.
And even they're gonna try to expand to other countries like Iran for sure.
وفي بينهما العراق.
And of course Iraq because it's between them.
ربما هذا يدفعنا.
Okay, I'm gonna stop right here, guys, and it's a long one. It's but very very interesting perspective to understand that he was right that Israel faces no legal, no moral, no military deterrent whatsoever, and this is why it's gonna be expanding its whatever it's doing. I mean, look, can the U.S. say no? You can't do this or no do that? No, even the U.S. couldn't tell the Israelis no. I mean, 30 fighter jets against the Houthis. So, and this is why you have, and by the way, the United States, the US, Washington, that is, he was aware ahead of time because it was an anonymous source inside Washington confirmed that the raids were coordinated with Washington in advance. The raids that Israel conducted in Hodeidah and Sanaa Airport. And this is again, that gives you an idea. So, but that becomes the question of this deterrence, and again, I go back to Dr. McKee's point. He's spot on because what Israel has adopted now is this so-called prevention, not deterrence. He wanted to prevent any entity in the region from developing capability. Of course, they stay short of going all the way to Iran because they know Iran is no small game. Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Syria. Iran is not Yemen. That's what because what the Israelis trying to do is that's the way of undermining the capabilities of the adversaries, whomever that might be. So, and they're not going to confront them, but also they want to make sure they don't have any capabilities. And this is why you see the Emiratis are establishing diplomatic ties with Israel. You see the Saudis, what the Saudis going to do. Saudis cannot lift whatever. They can't do a squat without the U.S. Their whole survival depends on the U.S. So Jordan, well, Jordan, just the size of New Jersey for that matter. I mean, what's going to do? Qatar, what's going to do? Qatar that has the largest American military base in the region. So, and all they do is we're going to be talking about ceasefire in Gaza, whatever, because they couldn't confront the Israelis. They won't be able to anyway. So, and this is where I agree with Dr. McKee that because he criticized, and like I do, when he described the absence of the Arab unified position or the unified Arab position. And that's why I put in for the community right there, while Arab and Muslim leaders watches from the sideline. This is the Hodeidah targeting. And that's where you have countries like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia, Egypt. I mean, Jordan, I won't consider it a major player in the region, are unable to form some sort of an alliance or so. They just won't be able to do so because they are so weak. Liking this video so far? Don't just be a watcher. Go ahead and hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget to tap the bell so you will not miss any of my videos or live streams. This way, you will be supporting a channel that stands for the truth and objective reporting. The choice is yours. Thanks for your support. Now, part of that clip, which I told you I'm not going to play it in its entirety because it's long. It was also another guest, and who used to be a former national security advisor. His name is Mike Feifel. So, and he was asked the question, because I had to listen to the entire interview there and so forth to learn more about this one. And the question for him was about the upcoming visit of Donald Trump to the region. So, and there are some key points he addressed. It's because one of them is that the U.S., the reason why they are going to this extreme as far as visiting, because the U.S. wants to see which other countries could take on the role of a mediator. Because now you're looking at the complications on a multiple fronts. You know, remember, Qatar still have some influence with Hamas to a degree because of the financial. Egypt still have some influence. Saudi Arabia because of the financial donations and so forth. And all this makes us think about, for me, I don't look at it from this perspective. I'm looking at it from the perspective of why did Trump decide to go to those three countries, but not, let's say, Jordan, not, let's say, Turkey. How about Egypt? It shows Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates, which, by the way, the trip is going to be from May 13th through the 16th. But one of the key things that we need to think about, you know, because when you do analysis regarding you have to address the points that is not being talked about completely. So all we hear about is the upcoming trip to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, but there is no conversation as to Israel, which begs the question: why is Trump avoiding going to Israel altogether? What does it mean? You know, why Israel is not part of this tour? So it's because there are some vexing issues regarding the war in Gaza. Of course, the Iranian nuclear program, because Israelis will pressure the United States regarding this, and let alone one big one. And this one has to do with the increasing tensions with the Houthis in the Red Sea. Because remember, Houthis are saying, we don't care what you say, as long as Israel is still imposing blockade on aid from getting into Gaza, we will still gonna target Israel. In return, the Israelis are pressuring the US to tell the Houthis, we need to come to some sort of a ceasefire here. And that is why it's becoming now a challenge on the ground, let alone the military cost associated with this for the United States. So, because so far, when Houthis, now, I'll let you think about this, whether the fighter jet was shut down, the first one, or was it just mechanical error, it's beside the point. When you shoot down or when you bring down, whatever way it goes, a $60 million fighter jet, it starts to be a reflection on the cost associated with the whole campaign against the Houthis. Ask any average American, but most Americans will even know where Yemen is. They're not going to know. Americans are not, sad to say, it's my country and so forth, but we are poor readers of history and poor in geography. We just have no idea where the rest of the world is. So here is what I wrote back then regarding this front. Meanwhile, the United States' role has been more limited and regressive. These developments will affect the political and economic future of the Desert Kingdom. My reference here to the Saudi Arabia. Specifically, whether the international community can still perceive Saudi Arabia as a regional leader, given Iran's growing political, economic, military, and ideological expansion in the Middle East. For its part, Iran is uncertain what to make of Saudi Arabia's ongoing failed military engagement in Yemen, its support of Sunni rebels in Syria, and the latest conflict with Qatar. Saudi Arabia accuses Qatar of supporting terrorist groups, an accusation criticized by Iran. Iran's criticism comes on the heels of President Donald Trump's recent trip to Saudi Arabia, which set the stage for the Desert Kingdom's aggressive behavior. Iran argues that the trip provided Saudi Arabia, along with its allies in the conflict, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Bahrain, with unrestricted power to act as at its own discretion, in spite of international law, legal norms, and cultural tradition. Will it benefit Saudi Arabia that the United States could provide it further opportunities to provide clandestine financial and logistical support to Sunni groups with a penchant for radical views and violent activities in the region and beyond? That's the question that I asked back then. Remember, that was during the time of the Saudi-Yemen conflict, which, by the way, we were the one providing weapons, intelligence targets, and some other countries, including Europeans, were providing weapons also. So that just shows you, and United Arab Emirates and all those. So, but this leads us to ask the key question regarding Donald Trump's upcoming trip, because you have to put that in perspective as to what should we expect. And once again, he's going back to Saudi Arabia. I just think about the outcome for this one here. So you start to ask about what will be the top priorities for him going there to those three countries: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. So what it will be on two aspects, and I agree with the former National Security Advisor regarding these points. So, because here is the thing, what Donald Trump wants to do, he wants to isolate Iran. Because remember, the relationship between those three countries and Iran have improved, especially after China brokered the deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And the reason why Donald Trump wants to isolate Iran, because he wanted to push it back to the negotiating table regarding Iran's nuclear program. Iranians are saying so far there will be no direct negotiations. It's the same arguments that China is making now. There will be no direct talks with the Americans till the Americans lift the tariffs. So it's a lose-lose situation for Trump, whatever way he looks at it. So that was the first. The second one, it has to do with the possibility of achieving a sustained ceasefire in Gaza. And the third one has to do with giving an ultimatum in ensuring the loyalty of those three countries to the Americans and the Israelis. So there is another possibility. I thought about it too, but I am not leaning more towards it, even though the possibility of it. And this one has to do with the continuation of Donald Trump from his first term in office. In his first term in office, he started to work on the so-called Abraham Accord regarding the Palestinian Israelis, so which he launched during the end of his first term. So what he wants to do, and that one, by the way, you all know what was about, was about promoting normalization of ties between Arab countries under the slogan of ending chronic wars and achieving regional stability. And this is where you see United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and what was the fourth, in addition to Egypt? Jordan. They all had a diplomatic recognition of with Israel. So if you think about Donald Trump going there, this has nothing to do with stopping the war. No, it's not. Or even protecting the civilians. This is why we were asking the Houthis for a ceasefire. Because for Trump, more the focus will be on economic and investments, because that's how he thinks. He thinks in terms of geopolitics as a transactional, and that just doesn't work. Doesn't work. He is betting, Donald Trump, that is, he is betting that when he travels over to those Gulf states, especially Qatar and United Arab Emirates, is that because he wants these countries to persuade the Hamas to accept a ceasefire, and to accept the ceasefire before he visits the region. I will say before the end. Before the end of his visit, which means he will come up for a photo up and say, see, I told you I went to the Middle East and I achieved the ceasefire. A big photo up, because that's what Trump is all about. Trump does not have an understanding, doesn't possess a depth when it comes down to international affairs. So I'll say to him, good luck with that. And that's when he wants to secure political achievements. But that's why Houthi is not going to buy this. So, and I don't think so. His trip is going to bring about anything, sort of a fundamental shift, if we are to use the term, unless it is coupled with recalibration of the U.S. position on unconditional support for Israel. Because this is what the region is witnessing right now. So when Trump said, I will be traveling to Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar, he should have added our subservient states. So, but he's not going to Israel for that matter. So, and that is a reason for that. So, once again, I recall arguing that positive attitudes, however short-lived, took different directions in Riyadh and Washington once President Trump was sworn in. How ironic. Because here is why. Before becoming a president, Donald Trump criticized Saudi Arabia, directing harsh words at the Saudis when he said, and I quote, the U.S. should not be working to support Saudi terrorists, end of quote. All this was water under the bridge when President Trump took office. Why? Because his first trip was to Saudi Arabia. So that begs the question, was that his way of saying, I am sorry? Used the wrong word? Didn't measure my word? I don't know much about global affairs? Did the president's first foreign trip to Saudi Arabia betray his awkward grasp of foreign affairs? You know, those are questions that I asked back then. So, and whatever the case may be, it became evident that that president trip at that time, and it seems to be repeating the mistake again, made to the Saudi, serves Saudi Arabia's interest very well. In other words, the Saudis used the naivety of Donald Trump. And my reference here is how Trump received, how Trump made, when he made the trip to the Saudi, serves the latter interest. And this is how, given how Trump's lack of credibility, you know, gobbled messages, inconsistencies. So, and of course, the bashing of all Muslims. So the Muslim world received his speech in Riyadh with low expectations back then, because instead of focusing on what matters, didn't. So, and this is why the Israelis are playing this differently. What the Israelis are saying is, oh, no. It's because Mr. Trump's focus is on Ukraine and nuclear talks with Iran. However, that's not true. It's the tensions that exist between between Netanyahu and Donald Trump. So, and of course, Mr. Trump said that, oh, we will work on delivering food aid to residents of Gaza Strip, because he will use it as a tool, as a weapon. And this is, again, you need to understand that as long as you have a head of state that has never acquired the necessary political, social, religious, and cultural knowledge of West Asia, which is a volatile region that with ever-changing dynamics, because that's how it works. If you don't have grasp of this, it's not going to make sense. And the policies will be nothing but reactionary. This is the reality of how Washington now operates, because sadly we have amateurs that deal with the fate of our country, at least for me. So, and I believe Mr. Trump needs to acquire the necessary knowledge. So now, all this comes on the heels of one more thing that I'm going to share with you. Wow, we already crossed an hour here. So, and this one has to do with a special type of missile. This is ballistic missiles from Iran that they just tested. So I'm going to share some info about this one. This one is called Qasim Basir, which is an Iranian ballistic missile that is, get this guys, that is resistant to electronic warfare and challenges the US THAAD system. Yeah, is this one right here. So this is an Iranian surface-to-surface ballistic missile with a range exceeding 1,200 kilometers. And this one is an upgrade of the Haj Qasim missile. Qasim Haj, it's in a reference to Qasim Soleimani, that is, and they do have a missile named after him. So the interesting thing about this missile is that it is equipped with a thermal imaging guidance system, enabling it to hit targets with greater accuracy. It also, it is another key that I need you to understand. It also resists jamming and electronic warfare attempts. And of course, has the capability of bypassing US air defense systems. So allow me to play a clip for you here, guys, quickly. All right, let me see. Which one is that? Yeah, take a listen here quickly, and I'll do a translation for you guys briefly. This is a short one here anyway.
كشف الجيش الإيراني عن الصاروخ الباليستي قاسم بصير، وأعلن أن مداه يبلغ 2200 كيلومتر.
Basically, the Iranian disclosed I'm going to share with you, by the way, since I have the screen open here, I want you to see the date when this was announced right there. I'm highlighting it, which was yesterday. And to my knowledge, the info came up yesterday, but the test, the launching of it was the day before. To my knowledge, it was on the 4th. So I just wanted to share this with you so you know.
قال وزير الدفاع الإيراني إن الصاروخ قادر على تجاوز أنظمة الدفاع الجوي.
Basically, the defense minister of Iran said that this missile is capable of surpassing the air defense systems.
للصواريخ الباليستية، وأضاف أن الصاروخ لا يستخدم ضد نظام الملاحة العالمي GPS.
And by the way, this missile does not fall under the guidance of GPS. Doesn't use that.
وبأن لديه قدرة كبيرة على المناورة
and has the capability of maneuverability.
الأهداف. وذكر التلفزيون
and the targeting, the precision of targeting its target.
الإيراني أن الجيش أجرى آخر اختبار على الصاروخ قاسم بصير.
And the military conducted the last testing of this missile
أبريل
in mid-April of this year.
الماضي، كما تم تطبيق التحديث عليه في جميع المدن الصاروخية الإيرانية.
Okay, and that was now the sorry, let me close this one here. Is that now this been deployed officially? That is why. So the reason why I'm saying this one here, guys, you have to put this in perspective, because you need to understand as to what the message Iran is also sending, given that the upcoming trip of Donald Trump to the region. So, and this is why to Donald Trump, it makes more sense to focus more on having a ceasefire with the Houthis than to even talk about the Iran nuclear program and so forth. So, and that's why the Iranians were ahead of it by unveiling the ceremony of the launching of the Qasim Basir missile. This is what's important about it. And again, it's very, very interesting type of missile. I read the characteristics. I don't deal with the tech stuff of missiles, whatever. I know some basics, but I wanted to learn more about this one. What surprised me the most is that this was done quietly. They've been working on this missile since last year, by the way, quietly. But in mid-April, to be exact, on the 17th of April, that's when they conducted the test. But this, what they did on the 4th of May, was the last test, the field test, that is, and now is deployed to all the locations. So the interesting aspect of it is that the upgrade version of it, and all this comes during also the time, 3 days, only 3 days after Marco Rubio called for a halt to uranium enrichment on Iranian soil and urged Iran to abandon the development of the long-range missiles. What an arrogance. What an arrogance, thinking we can dictate to other countries how to behave and what to do. It's under international law, they have the right to do whatever they want to do as far as the enrichment for civilian use. And even for the nuclear ones, you know, it begs the question, why aren't we saying anything about North Korea? You all know the answer to that. So. Anyway, that's all I have to share with you guys. I am going to be working on the Pakistan, India. I might do it tomorrow. I might do it Friday. No decision is made yet till I cover all America. Let me see this statement here. صالح يا دكتور الإعلام المحلي يقول إنه سيكون هناك اتفاق نووي بين السعودية وأمريكا. Basically, we're saying that there will be an agreement between the Saudis and the Americans regarding a nuclear agreement, because the Saudis also wanted to have civilian nuclear technology. I don't know. I didn't think about that. I'm going to be doing some reading more. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, in any event, I am going to be working on some other stories for you, and the one is the India-Pakistan war, and of course, it's of concern to me personally. Let's hope it doesn't get out of control or out of hand, because here's the thing, guys, the scary part: if the nukes are deployed, you're looking at 100 million people vanishing in no time. So, anyway. Please make sure to support the channel, because this analysis you are receiving, the information you're receiving, it's unique to this channel. So I'm very, very grateful for your support. This is for my upcoming Asia trip. And thank you to those who already bought me tea in support of the Asia trip. This is for the channel. If you want to support the channel, if you like the analysis you hear, I will be very, very grateful for your support. Remember to hit the like button and share the video with others. As always, remember, geopolitics impacts your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.